Hey guys, it's Annie, and today I'm sharing with you all of the things that I have intentionally manifested in the last year. My life looks completely different compared to what it looked like a year ago. So if you're excited about this and you like manifestation videos, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're not subscribed. But before we get into all of the manifestation success and wins, I want to remind you that in just 1 week from when I post this video on November 28th, I am hosting a free challenge. It's called the 10-Day Manifestation Activation Challenge, and it is an in-depth experience. We have a private Facebook group to connect in. There are daily sessions with me as well as 10 guest expert speakers. You probably recognize a lot of their faces. These are some of the top manifestation experts online, and I'm so excited for this group to come together. We already have 1,000 people registered for the event, and I know by the time we start there will be even more. So if you want to join on in, you can click the link down below and get in on this free experience. I promise you, if you show up and you participate, it will change your life. And if you can't make the live calls, the recordings are available, so you don't have to miss out. So again, click the link below, register, and I'm excited to manifest with you. So see you there. So if you don't know my story, 5 years ago, I had hit my rock bottom. I was about 5 years into a very toxic relationship with an alcoholic who was constantly cheating on me. I was depressed, I was anxious, I was broke, babysitting for $10 an hour as my main source of income. My face was covered in acne because of the stress. I had quickly gained 30 pounds. I was a completely different version of myself. I had very low confidence. I held in all my secrets, but that is the point that everything changed. I learned about the law of attraction and manifestation, and within 2 years, I had manifested living in a dream luxury apartment with a pool view. I had lost the weight and got into my fitness. I became a certified life coach. My YouTube had hundreds of thousands of followers. I was self-employed, making 6 figures on my own. I got my dream cat, I got my dream car, I found my soulmate friends, and everything took off. 1 year ago, I was still living at that apartment, and I absolutely loved it. I loved that chapter of my life, but something in me was telling me I needed to change. So again, I'm gonna share with you some of the things that I intentionally manifested. The first thing was Nomad Life. My plans were to pack up all my things in storage and start traveling. So that is what I did. I actually have created a home base here in my hometown in Washington, but reflecting back, I've taken over 20 separate trips this year. And I'm gonna list off some of the adventures I've gone on. The first adventure was a beautiful camping trip while I was still in California with 2 of my best friends, Shane and Alon. And after that, leaving LA, heading up towards Washington, I stayed at my first ever tiny home, and I absolutely loved it. It was in Central California. After that, I headed up to the Redwoods and stayed there for about a week. That was one of the most magical trips ever. Then I made my way up to Central Oregon and stayed with my cousin for a little bit. After that, I headed home to Washington and stayed here for several months. And that is when my plans started to change a bit. I then stayed at my favorite tiny home cabin in the woods ever. I took a trip and stayed with my best friend Corey in Bend, Oregon for about a week. After that, it was a Mount Shasta stay. Then I ended up once again with Shane and Alon for an entire month in Big Bear, California, where we had our own little yurt cabin and private 10 acres of land. Then it was Malibu for a very luxurious week. After that, I went down to San Diego and stayed in a Sprinter van for a week, which was a huge manifestation of mine because I've been interested in van life, and that checked that off the list. Then Alon and I hopped over to Sedona for a week, and so many magical things always happen when I go to Sedona. Definitely a place I recommend people go. After that, it was time to head back up to Washington, and I stayed once again at that first tiny home I ever stayed in. Back to Bend, Oregon to stay with Corey for a few days. Then I went all the way back home to Washington, which shortly after that, my parents and I took a luxurious vacation over to Maui, Hawaii, my one tropical stop of the year. And then back to Washington, and my good friend Rebecca and I and her family and friends stayed in Trout Lake, Washington, where there is this ET experience that we do every year. That probably sounds confusing. After the ET experience, I then went to Austin, Texas, where I stayed at the most luxurious retreat ever for the program that I'm in. And then I also had a little mini trip to stay with Rebecca in Austin as well. Wow, I almost forgot to add that I co-hosted my own retreat with Elan in Oregon, which in itself was a huge manifestation. So I have to add that now. Came back to Washington, another beautiful stay at my favorite tiny home cabin in the woods. And then right after that, and my most recent trip, was Sun River, Oregon for Rebecca's birthday. Those are the majority of my trips. There were a few stops here and there where I went and saw friends and things, but I can't remember them all. But that was over 20 trips. And then I have another 2-week stay at my favorite tiny home cabin in the woods, because that's where I'll be hosting the 10-day manifestation activation challenge directly from that tiny home, which is very intentional because I am manifesting next a tiny home for myself to live in. So what better way to do so than stay an extended period of time in a tiny home? Oh, also my month in Big Bear was a very intentional manifestation. I literally put a vision board phone screen background on my phone that looked like this, and the cabin had all of those elements. It was in the woods. It had a hot tub with the fairy lights and everything. And then the Sprinter van, I also made a phone screen vision board background. And then I think not even a week later, after putting that on my background, I found the Sprinter van on Airbnb, which was wild because I had been searching Airbnb forever and hadn't come across that before. Now I'm gonna tell you about my absolute favorite manifestation of this year, and that is I am seeing someone and I am in love with this person. For a long time, I was not open to dating or any of that, but it was actually when I got back to Washington, I'm feeling open to this sort of thing. So once again, I did a phone screen vision board background, and honestly, very shortly after putting that as my background, he came into my life, and he is not just anyone. I'm not gonna share his name, and I wanna keep his privacy private. So he's actually someone who I had a crush on since I was 13 years old. I'll give you the brief background story. So he was the drummer at church camp when I was 13 years old, and I would just stare at him while he was on stage. Like, I thought he was the most beautiful thing ever. And it was just like, ah! So I would just stare at him the entire time he was playing. And the last night of church camp, he handed me his drumsticks off of stage, and I kept them. I had them all the way into my adult life. Then when I got into high school, he was a senior when I was a freshman, I still had a massive crush on him. I felt super nervous anytime he was around. He actually was my first kiss when I was a freshman. We didn't date, but he was my first kiss. And then we actually did have a little tiny fling when I was about 19 years old, 20 maybe. That was that, and I thought that was the end of the biggest crush of my life. But I got back to Washington, and he lives here again, and he reached out. We ended up hanging out, and here we are 10 months later, and he's honestly my favorite person in the world. So that was a big manifestation, and what we have is special, and a lot of people don't get to experience this, where we can communicate and support each other and cheer each other on. And if there's an issue, we don't fight, we talk it through and listen to one another and resolve. And yeah, favorite manifestation like ever. So that is a big reason I like being around here, among other things. Like, I've been really called to nature, and Washington is just like pure nature. My parents have 17 or 18 acres of land, and it's just really nice, especially when I get to travel a lot and see friends all the time anyway. Speaking of travel, because I was traveling so much, I took a step back from YouTube and I took a step back from coaching. I'm like, I have some savings, I want to travel, I want to enjoy life, and I stopped working for a while. But after a while, I'm like, oh shoot, I need to generate income. So I started scripting about making $10,000 a month, and after doing that, the next month, I got a bunch of new clients, dream clients, very intuitive empaths, spiritually open. They all had amazing transformations in our 6 weeks of coaching together. But again, because of that, I manifested that $10,000. Ooh, I just looked at my phone and it's 333. But with starting to get new one-on-one clients and manifesting the $10,000 in a month, my next manifestation happened, and it's this program called Creatrix Academy that I had been interested in with my now mentor, Jolie Dawn. But I was like, I don't know if I can do this because it's $17,000. And my desire to join this program was before I manifested the $10,000, which is another reason why I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I started generating more income, manifested the $10,000 was able to join Creatrix Academy. That's also linked to the retreat in Texas that I went to, which was amazing. Spiritual business program, yes, I loved it. Every single time I invest in myself, I come out of it a new version. My life expands, big things happen, changes happen that would not have happened if I would have just like stayed in my little bubble and not been pushed to try new things. So I highly recommend investing in yourself. Another thing I manifested was losing weight once again. After 2020, a lot of us put on the quarantine pounds. I probably got back up to 140. I'm relatively short, and just this year I haven't stepped foot in a gym, but I started scripting about being fit and confident in my body, and now I'm back in the 120s. And again, I haven't been in a gym, I haven't been obsessing over it. I have been conscious of my health, but for just like exploring nature, that's a pretty good transformation. My next big manifestation, all of the speakers that I got for the 10-day manifestation activation challenge, every single person I asked said yes. And on top of that, another manifestation was I wanted to get at least 1,000 people in this challenge. And right now, the last time I checked, we had just over 1,300 people, and we still have a week to go before it even starts. And again, if you want to join us in the challenge, click the link below. It's free. Register if you can't make it live for all of the days. Replay is available. Take the leap, come join the experience. It's gonna be freaking amazing. Oh yeah, and another manifestation is becoming a published author. I haven't told you guys that one yet. I am currently co-writing a book, and by next year I will be a published author. And with that, that is all that I could think of today off the top of my head that I manifested. Honestly, we're constantly manifesting, whether we're intentional or not, but these are the things that I intentionally manifested. I made the decision, I used the manifestation tools, and these things happened. And my next big manifestation, which I touched on, is manifesting a tiny home, which is my current phone screen vision board background. As you can see, I actually recently found a company, and their base price for a really adorable tiny home, base price, then you customize and whatnot, is only $60,000. And you can finance it. And like, there are many new cars that cost that much and more. Like, I can get my own little tiny home for that. My intention is to call that in and have that here on my parents' property by this spring. And with that price, like, it's a no-brainer. I can absolutely do that. And then that will be my home base. I can be around my family, I can be around nature, I can be around my guy, and I can still go and travel. So that's what my life is looking like. A lot different than a year ago when I was still living in California in that apartment that I absolutely loved. But if you would tell me that now I would be doing this, hosting an event with massive speakers, about to get a tiny home, living in Washington, in a relationship with my biggest crush from when I was 13 years old, traveling, having all these opportunities. I've even already been invited to a few trips in 2023. I got invited to Dubai. I got invited to be flown down to do a collaboration in Austin in January. Just already things are happening. Already things for next year are in my field coming to me. And yeah, life is magical, life is cool. If you want to unlock your magic, activate your magic once again, then you can register for free to join the free 10-day manifestation activation challenge. I hope to see you there. Thank you for being here today. That is all. See you in the challenge, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye guys.